Coffee Break with Rachel V. Hill. Taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel V. Hill.
There has been so much talk about Courtland Sutton, him not being at OTAs, officially confirmed that he will be at minicamp this week. And there's just been a lot of talk, and it really got me thinking, is Courtland Sutton the it factor for this Denver Broncos team? Because everybody sure seems to be acting like it. It's a Marilap Monday. Hello, how was your weekend?
It was great, Rachel. How was yours?
It was good. I can't believe it. Here we are. We're watching the NBA Finals, and it's not the Nuggets, which is depressing.
That's not great.
No,
that
that's
actually,
not great.
last night, it's what I wrote about today at denversports.com.
Yeah.
It ticked me off.
Yeah.
Watching those two teams just throw up bricks and unable to execute offensively, and just I'm like, these are the two best teams in the NBA.
Yep.
No, they're not. Nuggets blew their opportunity. They would have beat Dallas. They would have beat Boston.
Yep.
It's just so frustrating that they squandered it in Game 7 against the Wolves. I know that's off topic.
Trust me.
But you brought it up, and I had to vent a little bit.
I feel it. Great article over at denversports.com, of course. Make sure you check it out because I did read a little bit about it. But back to Courtland Sutton.
Yeah.
We can get to basketball here in a quick second.
Okay.
I'm not trying to dog on Courtland Sutton by any means. Okay. So I want to make that very clear, Courtland Sutton fan here. But it does feel like we're putting so much into it of okay, if the Broncos are going to be successful this year, if Courtland Sutton's out there. And I just feel like that's not the case. Courtland Sutton hasn't even had a 1,000-yard season here in the past since, his injury. And it's why are we putting so much into this one guy being out there?
Well, he was their best offensive player last year outside of Russell Wilson. He had 10 touchdowns. Now, that's because they were bad. Who else was it going to be? It should have been Jerry Jeudy. It just wasn't, for a whole host of factors, which is why he's not here.
Yeah.
The running back room, it was a guy coming off a major knee injury. It was a, career backup, and it was a undrafted rookie.
Yeah.
None of those guys were going to be it. And then there was a tight end room that was the worst in the league.
Yeah.
So somebody had to be the best guy in that group. It was Courtland Sutton.
Yep.
But on how many teams would he be the guy?
Probably
one here.
Well, yeah, and maybe the Panthers or something. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. So point being, it's a handful of teams, and it's not any good teams where he would be the guy. Are the Broncos better if Courtland Sutton is there? Yes.
Yes.
But the Broncos are also better. And this is what I said last year, that I thought Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy were competing to see who would be the number 2 receiver this year.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have a number 1 last year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, somebody had to play that role because somebody has to be it, but they didn't have a true number 1. Courtland Sutton, if he was playing opposite of a premier wide receiver or, a guy that is a true number 1,
mm-hmm.
he would be a very effective number 2. He would be. Imagine him opposite CeeDee Lamb or Justin Jefferson or Tyreek Hill or, the list goes on and on and on. He would be really good in that role. He's not a number 1.
Agreed.
The Broncos still don't have a number 1 receiver.
Yep.
Josh Reynolds, we'll see if he can develop into that. He hasn't been that. He's been the number 2.
Yep.
Right? How good would Courtland Sutton look
You're totally right on that.
in Detroit with St. Brown on the other side, and all those weapons in the backfield, and they weren't focusing on Courtland? He'd be really good.
Yeah.
Now, would he be great? No, he's not a great receiver. Could he be really, really good? Yeah. It's just, unfortunately, here he's having to play a different role because he is their best wide receiver.
Yeah. I just got sick of the conversation, and I kind of felt bad for Courtland because it was everybody trying to figure out if he was going to come to minicamp and how he was being so selfish and all of these things. And it just really got me thinking. I'm why does it matter? It's not like Courtland Sutton being out there is going to allow this team to go out there and possibly be a playoff team. Unfortunately, you still have the QBs. And I see all of the comments coming in, and they're Courtland hasn't had a QB. Courtland hasn't had a QB. It was because Russ can't hit a slant or throw a timing. It wasn't because of Courtland. All of these things. And it just really got me thinking, it's not really going to change much this year. And it kind of sounds bad, but Broncos quarterback room's not good either.
Courtland has been here during the whole quarterback carousel, right?
Yep.
He's played with a bunch of different guys, most of which are not true NFL caliber quarterbacks.
Yep.
I think to blame it on Russell Wilson is misguided. Look, he had 10 touchdowns.
Yeah.
A lot of that is because he and Russell Wilson had a good rapport.
Good
They were
chemistry.
on broken plays, and Russ knew where to find Courtland, and Courtland knew how to get open. They had a good chemistry. They did.
Mm-hmm.
To say it's because he was 44th in the league in yards because Russ couldn't throw a slant. Okay.
It was just 'cause
I've heard
Russ
them
got
all
sacked.
now. He can't throw a slant. Okay, that's a good one. Mini Christmas. But if you look at it, and Will Peterson and I did this last week when we were filling in on one of the shows. I think it was for Stokely and Zach. And the names around Courtland Sutton in terms of receiving yards last year, they're a bunch of journeyman guys. They're a bunch of guys that unless you had major injuries at wide receiver on your fantasy team, you don't know who these guys play
100%.
for. That's the company that Courtland Sutton is keeping. Now, part of that is the offense. Part of that is the quarterbacks.
Yep.
But also part of it is because that's what Courtland Sutton is, right? Like, he's not a great receiver. He was heading in that direction before he got injured.
Yep.
He came back and was valiant in the fact that he returned the next season, wasn't 100%. We all saw him limping around down at training camp, and he still tried to play through it, which kudos to him, but he has not been the same guy.
Yeah.
Is he getting closer and closer and closer to that? Sure. But it also then at that point, you've been around a while, age starts to creep up on you, et cetera, et cetera. So do I ever think Courtland Sutton's going to be an elite number one receiver that's in that conversation with Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson? No, I do not. Yeah. That doesn't mean he doesn't play a role on this team. That doesn't mean the Broncos aren't better with him on the roster than without him. But you can also make the argument, look, they were a crappy offense with him. They can be a crappy offense without him too. Like,
true.
If he wants to, if I'm the Broncos, I'm playing hardball with Courtland Sutton. Like they've been regretting that contract, or should have been regretting that contract since the minute they signed it. They're finally at the point where they can see a light at the end of the tunnel, and he wants him to double down on it. Nope. You can stay wherever you're at in Florida, working out and not collect paychecks this year if you want. Broncos have all the leverage here and should 100% play hardball.
No, I'm totally with you. So who's the it factor then? Who's the it factor for this Broncos team?
That's the problem. They don't have it. They don't. Which last year when I kept saying it, everybody just thought, "Oh, here he goes again, making his Russell Wilson excuses." Yeah, if he'd had some help around him, but there were times last year when you look at it and he's like, he's got Samaje in the backfield, he's got Troutman, he's got Manhurts, he's got little Jordan Humphrey, and he's got whoever else at the other wide receiver. And you're like, oh my gosh, who would have success with this, right? Like, he's trying to throw the ball,
but he's Russell
Lucas
Wilson.
Kroll in the most important play of the season at the 8-yard line against the Texans. Like, he ain't throwing it to Travis Kelce. Like, that would make a difference. And I remember, I think came in here with you, and I was on Denver Sports Tonight. I'm saying, if that's Travis Kelce, you think that's a touchdown or an interception? It's probably a touchdown. At worst, it's an incompletion. Yeah. And instead, it turns into a pick. So it's like, well, to some extent, that's not on the quarterback. It's the exact same decision. It's the exact same throw. You're going to get tired of me saying it. You probably already are. It's hard to soar like an eagle when you're flying with turkeys. This team is still loaded with turkeys.
Are the Broncos going to be worse or better than last year?
Worse.
Okay. Because Russell Wilson's not here.
Yeah.
Are you sick of being the guy on the Russell Wilson bandwagon?
No.
Okay.
No. They're going to be significantly worse without Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson
makes me nervous.
Is a big part. He threw 26 touchdowns and 8 picks last year. His fumbles, way too many fumbles. I get it.
Way too many. Way too many sacks.
What he did with the personnel he had around him, I think we're going to see this season of like, oh, that was pretty impressive. And you're definitely going to get tired of me hearing this, because we're going to hear it week 1 on, and it's going to be the excuse for Jarrett Stidham, Zach Wilson, and especially Bo Nix if he's the starter. Well, he doesn't have anything around him. Other than Jerry Jeudy, it's the same group that Russ had. Yeah. And you can make the argument, I don't even think it's a tough one, that Josh Reynolds is an upgrade from Jerry Jeudy. Maybe not in terms of talent, but what he's actually done in the league. Yeah. So whoever's playing quarterback this year, same stuff that's in the box on Chopped, when you open it up, go ahead and cook and see if we can cook better than Russ.
I feel like I've got you really fired up, and you're trying not to curse over here.
The Russ hate in this town, and everything gets blamed on him. It's just like, come on. Okay, we'll see.
We are going to, and that's the thing.
Maybe Sean Payton with this same group of skill guys is just going to have this dynamic offense with Stidham, Zach, or Bo throwing the rock. I don't believe it. I don't believe it for a second. And then defensively, they've gotten worse.
Oh, without Justin Simmons.
No, Justin Simmons. And I don't think Josie Jewell's a great player. I don't. But they didn't adequately replace him.
Agreed.
I don't think Kareem Jackson was a great player, especially at this point in his career. But have they replaced him? I liked PJ Locke when he came in.
Me too.
They were actually better when Kareem got kicked out of games than PJ Locke had to play.
Totally agree.
But over the course of a season, is he better than Kareem Jackson? Probably at this point in their careers, yeah.
Mhm.
But there are a lot of question marks on that side of the ball that we don't really talk about because the offense was such a mess.
Yeah.
Blame it all on Russ. You can't blame the defensive woes on Russ because he didn't play on that side of the ball. So nobody wants to talk about it.
Well, and let's be honest, nobody really has any faith in Vance Joseph. So like people already are like, nope, our defense can be terrible. But it's all about Sean Payton, which actually goes back to what you wrote last week at denversports.com. Because again, people believe in Sean Payton, so the offense should be better because he's the quarterback guru.
Yeah, and there's just no evidence to back that up. There really isn't. Like, yeah, he did it with Drew Brees, but Drew Brees was already a Pro Bowl quarterback when he got to New Orleans. Now, he was better with Sean Payton, and Sean Payton certainly played a role in that. It would be crazy for me to say he didn't, but to suggest that he can develop a quarterback because he turned Drew Brees from here to here, he didn't get him at the floor.
Yeah.
We've never seen that. We've never seen it. He's going to develop a rookie quarterback. Find me the quarterback he drafted that turned into anything.
Are we at the floor right now? Or can it get
Bo
worse?
Nix is at the floor.
Can it get worse though?
Sure, it could definitely get worse.
Okay, so
I mean, we're
on the
Brandon Allens
then.
of the world are worse than any of the three quarterbacks here
that
the Broncos have. Now, they didn't try playing an entire season with Brandon Allen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's intriguing things about Zach Wilson and Bo Nix. I don't think there's much intriguing about Jarrett Stidham. I really don't. I think he's a classic backup.
He's a journeyman
that can come in if something happens to your starter and things don't go off the rails.
Yeah.
Okay, he's a competent backup. That's not a slight. It's just that can't be your plan for 17 games.
Mm-hmm.
Can it get worse than this quarterback situation? Yeah, but not much.
Yeah. I mean, there's no big names on it, right? Like Bo Nix, to be honest, should be drafted in the second round. And because of where he's picked, he's being talked so highly about.
Mike Evans said the other day, this is the height of the Sean Payton just hysteria, right? Like he almost made my point from my column for me. And now he's the vice president of the Sean Payton fan club with Mark Schlereth being the president. But he said on Friday that Bo Nix had to be drafted by Sean Payton or Sean McVay. If he'd have gone somewhere else, he thinks he's a Case Keenum type player. And I'm like, well, then why on earth did you take him number 12?
Yeah. Wait,
if that's his talent and that's his skill set, that's the hope. Like, because Sean Payton's proven he can coach him up. Like, it made my point. Like, okay, so you believe Sean Payton's going to turn a guy who's really Case Keenum into a star. Therefore, you take him at 12, which makes no sense. I'm supposed to believe in that based on Sean Payton's track record of drafting and developing quarterbacks, which is nil. Like, it's doesn't mean it can't happen. Just because something hasn't happened before doesn't mean it can't happen now. But that's exactly why it's like, well, you got to show me.
Yeah.
If you've never done it, I can think you're great at, climb. I think you can climb Mount Everest, but if you haven't done it, I'm kind of going to be like, I want to see you do it before I truly think you can do it. That's all I'm saying with Sean Payton. And you just, you make the fan club mad when you say that.
I think one of the most fascinating storylines when it comes to Sean Payton and like the draft and where they picked Bo Nix is the narrative of like, well, Sean Payton wanted to draft Patrick Mahomes, but it snuck away from him. And it's like, shoulda, coulda, woulda. Like, why is this the biggest narrative around it and saying we're going to have success with Sean Payton and Bo Nix because he wanted to draft Patrick Mahomes and he didn't?
Well, and that's really easy to say too. Like, we would have taken him.
Yeah. Well, looking back now, yeah.
Yeah. Like, okay.
But I think Andy Reid is a much better coach than Sean Payton is. And that's not trying to discredit Sean Payton, but like Andy Reid has won. They weren't supposed to win the Super Bowl last year.
No.
He took what was dealt in his hand and figured out a way to still win it.
Yeah, and would Patrick Mahomes have been really good in New Orleans? Yes.
Yeah.
Would he have been what he is in Kansas City?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think Andy Reid's a tremendous coach. I think having Travis Kelce there has made a big, big difference.
Sure.
They've had a revolving door of receivers.
Mm-hmm.
And, everybody thought, myself included, when they lost Tyreek Hill, like that was the straw that stirred the drink.
Too.
Like his ability to just scare opposing defenses opened everything else up. To some extent, it's been true because they haven't been as explosive and they haven't just been like, oh my gosh, they're like a video game.
Yeah.
But they've still been able to be effective, still been able to win. That's because Travis Kelce is the guy that's in the middle of the field that basically just goes and finds an open spot and he and Mahomes are on the same page. You have to have, it's a little bit like we talked about with Jokic. If you have to have a Robin for your Batman,
yep.
He has it. Who's the Robin in Denver? If Bo Nix becomes Batman, or when Russ was Batman, who is it? Courtland Sutton? That's your Robin?
Was last year. It's going to be tough. Okay, going on to basketball now.
Yeah.
I got you all fired up. I love it on this Monday. Dan Hurley doesn't take the Lakers job, decides to go back to UConn to chase a third title. How do you feel about that? Are you down with staying at the college level and not going pro?
Yeah, I mean, if, to some extent, if you found a place that you're comfortable with, you found success, what are the odds Lightning's going to strike twice?
Totally
I always say this about people who leave hit TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really? You think you're going to go get on another hit TV show?
Yeah.
Do you not remember how hard it was to even get a show, let alone have it get picked up after the pilot, let alone turn into a hit? Like, you struck gold.
Yeah.
Just ride it out.
It's like Kevin Costner in Yellowstone.
Yeah.
I'm like, why? Why are you doing this? Why are you leaving?
And for me, I would just get everything you can out of that experience and then, know when it's time to move on.
Yeah.
The other argument is hey, once you've accomplished something, it's time for a new challenge. Okay, I get that, but why would you want to go to the Lakers? Other than Phil Jackson, who's had success there? I mean, Frank Vogel won a title in the bubble and he was ousted.
Mm-hmm.
Is walking into a place where expectations are so high because we're the Lakers, yet the roster isn't up to the level that can get anywhere near that, even with LeBron James on the team. So it's just you were walking into something that you were set up to fail.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would have jumped at that. Would I go to the NBA at some point if I'm Dan Hurley? Sure. I think at some point I'd want to look at the next challenge, but I'd pick a better spot than LA.
Yeah, I think it's actually really fascinating because most of the times, right, it's always about climbing the ladder. Keep climbing the ladder. And I think a lot of times now it's about getting that feeling and that opportunity. Like, yeah, you can go make probably more money with the Lakers and stuff, but you may never win another championship again. Like, despite how good of a coach you are, if you don't have the cap space or the players, or there's so many things that go into it at the professional level where you can bring in those guys. And I know NIL kind of comes into it a little bit nowadays, but you're in that championship window, go win 3 more or whatever you're going to be able to do at UConn and then see what's going on.
Yeah. And you can he's on the cusp of becoming a legend.
Yeah, literally.
Right? In the guy, then another coach at that school, Gino.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times do we hear people saying, oh, he should jump to a men's program or whatever? And he stayed at UConn, coached the women's program. He's an absolute legend.
Yeah.
It's the UConn women's basketball program in terms of dominance is in the same conversation as John Wooden's UCLA teams.
Yeah.
So at some point you just are become the legend by being the greatest of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Is he going to go to the Lakers and be the greatest NBA coach? No, Phil Jackson is. He's got 11 rings, right? So is he anywhere near that at UConn at the moment? No, but win another 2 or 3, especially in today's day and age where it's the one and done era and the NIL era, you start to put yourself in that conversation. So I don't think he's missing an opportunity by not moving to the Lakers at all.
And we all know that the championship window is so small, which goes back to how we even started the show talking about the Nuggets. The Nuggets tried to extend their championship window instead of just going and grabbing what was hopefully in front of them. They could have done things differently when it came to management in order to possibly help this team out this year.
Yeah.
Instead of looking to go young and say, we can win 3 more championships in the next 5 years.
Yeah. There were 4 people I blame for the fact that we're not watching the Nuggets right now. Right? Calvin Booth's on the list.
Michael Malone.
On the list.
Players.
There's 2. They're paid like stars and they didn't play like stars. MPJ's on the list. Jamal Murray. And Jamal Murray had 3 big moments, right? The 2 game-winning shots against the Lakers.
How much pass does he get? Because we know he's playing through pain.
No. If you're on the court, you're on the court.
Okay.
The excuses for this team, it's like we're the little league mom.
Well, he was hurt.
Oh, they're fatigued. The fatigue thing drives me crazy.
That's pathetic.
They fly on charter planes.
Yeah,
they stay at the Ritz-Carlton. They have, personal masseuses and chefs and all the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like back in the day, Larry Bird and Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish used to go to Stapleton Airport and hop on a Braniff flight and sit and coach.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? We're fatigued.
I'm with you on that.
I'm just not buying it. Now, did Nikola Jokic play too many minutes in Game 7? Yeah, because Michael Malone panicked. Do I think he was worn out because they were trying to get the 1 seed? No. And all these people who are like, they shouldn't have tried to get the 1 seed. Fine. Outside of the bubble, tell me a time Michael Malone has ever won a series against a team when he didn't have home court advantage. I can save you the research. It's never happened.
Yeah.
So, they won the title the year before. They were the 1 seed.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you not try to get that if you knew that was such a big factor? But that said, playing Nikola Jokic 47 minutes in Game 7 was a mistake. But he didn't have an answer because he didn't spend the regular season developing Zeke Naji or figuring out what's a role for DeAndre Jordan or whatever else. Those 4 guys need to be better. And if they had been better in different ways, the Nuggets would be playing right now, and we'd be talking about going to a parade in a week.
I'm also, though, on the thing of he's your best player, he's your MVP. You play him as many minutes as you need him to.
Yeah,
you
but
can't,
it's like you play him you couldn't get 3 minutes out of DeAndre Jordan to just go out there and
I get that, but that's
hammer
the 3
Karl
minutes,
Anthony
right?
Towns.
Like, I am totally on the page of you want to be played like a superstar, you want to be the MVP, all of those things. Same for Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray is actually the big one because the all-star thing pisses me off beyond like no ends. Then you better go out there and you better play every single minute until you can win that.
For the most part, I'm with you in a do or die situation. The way the minutes in terms of that those guys played in terms of my criticisms of Michael Malone is way down the list. It was also, dude, you had a 20-point lead in the third quarter, Game 7 on your home court.
Yeah,
managing timeouts, managing, hey, what are we doing instead of just running the 2-man set every single time with Jamal and Jokic?
Yeah.
And the Wolves were defending it to where it made Jokic pop out to the 3-point line, and he was 2 for 10. And if he goes 5 for 10, which isn't outside the realm of possibilities, they win the game, and Michael Malone, looks like a genius again to the apologists. But when they were defending it that way, and Jokic wasn't hitting his shot, you gotta go to something else, and they didn't. He just relied on what they always do, which is what someone tried to tell us Michael Malone does, and nobody wanted to listen.
Nobody wanted to listen. Well, James Marilat, we listen on these Marilat Mondays, so thank you very much. I always appreciate the time.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Plenty of good stuff. Make sure you guys tune in. I see all of your comments. Keep them coming because there's lots of good ones, and we will see you guys tomorrow at 10 a.m. for Denver Sports Daily and right back here at 12 p.m. for a coffee break. Bye, everybody.